Hi everyone, welcome back to the Casual Watch Review channel. So in this week's episode, I've been kindly sent a watch in for us to review. So here it is in this box. So if I just open this up here. So here it is. So it's actually a Spinnaker watch. Now, you might have heard of this brand before, and you've certainly seen it on some other channels and across social media, because I think they're doing an absolute fantastic job of marketing themselves. Whereas the watch industry is notoriously slow at picking up social media, I think Spinnaker are certainly doing a good job of getting the message out there. So here we are out of the box, and overall a really smart looking watch. I'm a big fan of this design actually. It certainly has a lot of vintage elements to it that have been nicely sort of updated with modern materials and a modern movement in here. So this is the Spinnaker Bradner vintage dive watch, and on Spinnaker's website they mention that this is a compressor style dive watch. So what do we mean by compressor style? So there was various different technologies that were used when designing dive watches, one of which was known as a compressor case. This technically isn't a compressor watch, but it certainly has a lot of design elements to it. For example, it has these double crowns here, which is something that, although didn't feature on all compressor watches, is certainly something that came synonymous with the design. We have a 42mm case here, so updated to kind of modern proportions. This really interesting internal bezel, which we'll look at closely in a second. The bandwidth here is 20mm, which I think is perfect for a watch. There's plenty of straps that are available in 20mm. It comes on this really nice leather, red leather, waterproof leather strap here, but this would look great on a NATO. I think it would also look great on a kind of like vintage waffle strap or even a tropic strap. I think that would really smart on. So kind of moving down to the side of the case, we have the double crowns here. Now, the crown for setting the time is actually a screw down crown, whereas the one for controlling the bezel here isn't screw down. Not quite sure what that is, why there's two different elements here, but this watch is rated to 150 meters, so you're more than covered for, you know, swimming and taking showers and stuff like that with it, certainly even diving with it. Moving around to the back, we have the exhibition display case here, all stainless steel construction. Now this is mentioned on Spinnaker's website as being made of marine grade stainless steel. So what do we mean by that? Well, marine grade stainless steel is essentially 316L stainless steel, which we're used to seeing on mid to high range watches. The reason that they call it marine grade in this instance is because not only is it a hardened steel, but it also has other elements mixed into it as well, which means it's highly corrosive resistant. So you're going to get a lot of life out of this case. So not only is it hardened steel, but it also has the anti-corrosive properties to it as well. So a very durable case. We're using, moving back around to the movement now, we can see through the display case. So this is using Seiko's TMI NH35 movement, which is Seiko's kind of workhouse movement for, you see it in a lot of micro brand watches. I've certainly reviewed it a couple of times on my channel. Very reliable, easy to service. We have hacking, we have hand winding on here. So a really fully functioned movement and a great use for it in this watch. We also have the date complication on here as well. So the dial itself is one of the most interesting elements for me, and I'm probably not doing it justice on this video, but it's actually got multiple different layers to the dial. So the first raised layer is this actual internal bezel. Now this internal bezel is controlled by this top crown here, very smooth action to it. It's unidirectional, so it will go in both ways, so you can use it for a count up timer and a count down timer if you wanted to as well. Very smooth action to it. These numbers and the indices here are actually raised, and it gives a lot of texture to the dial, and they've also got this liberal application of superluminova on here. So it uses superluminova C1, which is more than suitable for this use, but it's not the highest superluminova that you can get. And honestly, let me just throw up a lume shot, because the lume on this looks fantastic. Not only do we have lume on the outer bezel here, but those really nice, thick, applied indices on the inner dial here really stand out. And the hands on this watch as well, very legible, easy to pick out between the minute and the hour hand. So let's look back at the dial now and move one kind of element in. So this is, I didn't notice this straight away, but there's actually another kind of ring or a bezel, fixed bezel internally between this outer bezel and the dial. And this has a great look to it actually. The reason I didn't notice it straight away is it's kind of like black Arabic numerals etched into like a gunmetal finish. Then moving to the inner dial, we have this sunburst black dial with these raised applied indices for the hour hands, for the hour markers. They have these squares, and then for the 6 and 12 o'clock, we have these rectangles. These give a lot of texture to the dial, make it very interesting to look at actually. Now looking at the hands, these are some of the most interesting hands that I've seen on a watch for a while actually. We're used to seeing on modern dive watches really chunky, thick hands like an Arrow or something like that, whereas these hands, they're really in a nice proportion to the dial. I think that's something that's missing off a lot of modern dive watches actually, that the hands are either too small or too large, whereas these look kind of perfectly in proportion for the design. Also, when the hour hand moves, it fits exactly into these indices. They're the same shape, which is actually really pleasing. The minute hand is clearly distinguishable from the hour hand, and it is a baton style hand. Really nice geometric look to it. And then the second hand, like a lollipop style hand with a really cheeky kind of like orange ring around the lume pit, which I'm a big fan of. And they all have this kind of like brushed finish to them as well, which looks cool. I think it would also look nice if they were kind of more, had like a more polished finish to them as well. But overall, a really smart pair of hands on here. Big fan of this. So whilst wearing this, it's a very comfortable watch to wear. Has a nice size to it. It fits my 7.5-inch wrist really well. So I'm a big fan of the design. It's also surprisingly light as well, which I wasn't expecting. Included strap is really comfortable as well. So I'm usually not a big fan of straps that come included with watches, but this one is actually pretty decent, and especially for the price point. These watches retail for under $300, which is really impressive for the quality of craftsmanship you're getting, the reliable movement that's in these, and also this vintage design. Just a really interesting design at that price point. So back to the dial, I can't finish without pointing out the Spinnaker logo on here. I really like that font. It looks like kind of like old automotive, like an old Cadillac or something like that. And it also kind of reminds me of kind of like old radios or gauges that were used. I'm a real big fan of the font that they've actually used there. And we can actually see their other logo, which is etched on the crown here for setting the time. So overall, a really impressive watch. It was actually only been released since July the 20th, so I'm very lucky to get my hands on one of these early on, and I'm very thankful for all the folks at Spinnaker for sending me one of these to review. A big thank you to them. It was a pleasure to review it. A really nice, smart looking watch. Now, if you're interested in seeing more of this watch, sign up to my Instagram account. I'm using that a lot more now. Also, I've been using the new Instagram TV feature. So you'll see uploads from me in the week, little unboxings, and also you'll see me out and about on my travels and the various watches that I kind of take with me. If you're interested in picking one of these watches up for yourself, Spinnaker have kindly given me a 20% discount code to use for all of the viewers of the Casual Watch Review channel. So if you use this code here and then use the link, you'll see that not only are you getting this great watch for the sub $300 price range, but you're actually getting an extra 20% off. So highly recommend that you use that code if you're interested in picking one of these watches up. I'm certainly a big fan of this model so far. As always, guys, if you've got any comments, leave them in the comments section down below. I'll try and get back to them as quick as possible. You can also email me at thecasualwatchreviewer@gmail.com. You can get me across my various social media accounts, so whether that's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time on the Casual Watch Review channel. Thanks, guys. Bye.